You are in for an absolute treat. I had to spend some time with my dear friend, Joel Ferdinand. He is part of Pearson Ferdinand, the largest launch of a law firm in American history. And the success that they've had, the growth that they've had, and really the way that he summarizes it. It has been a wild ride for Joel. I'm so excited. I'm proud of him. And it's fun to see and see how God's blessing his business. Here's my friend Joel. Welcome to Market Mavericks. I'm Matthew Eford. Join me as I speak with leaders who are redefining industries in every corner of the market. From startups to established businesses, we'll uncover the strategies, challenges, and insights that drive success. Get ready to be inspired by the Mavericks who are shaping the future of business. Welcome, everyone, to Market Mavericks. I have my dear friend, Joel Ferdinand, with me. Joel is serving as our legal counsel in Lighting Pros franchise and Lighting Pros, as well as Mosquito Joe. He's just a fantastic individual that I got connected to through Iron Forums, which you've heard me talk about on this podcast many times, as a Christian business owners group. That's a mastermind group. It's getting men and women out of isolation, getting them in community, and helping them grow in their faith and as a family member, as well as in their business. So Joel's a dear friend of mine through that and has advised us a lot, and so excited to have Joel here. He is very busy, so we want to be respectful of his time, but sit back and listen. Joel's got some great advice I know he's going to share. So Joel, with that intro, those people who are listening that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about the company that you've recently founded that has absolutely exploded and what the role is that you play in it.
Oh my gosh. Well, so my name is Joel Ferdinand. Matt, thank you for having me again. I am a follower first. I'm a husband of Robin, my best friend. We're together 22 years now, married 17. I have a son, Finn, that's 14, my other bestie, a nephew that is 18 going to college next year, which is insane to me.
I love it.
I co-own with my partner and dear friend, Michael Pearson, the law firm Pearson Ferdinand. We launched on January 2nd. Watch, I'm going to start tearing up. We launched on January 2nd and ended up being the largest law firm launch in U.S. history, which is mind-boggling to me. So we launched with 129 partners in about 22 jurisdictions.
Wow.
So fast forward, today's November 2nd when we're filming, we are over $64 million billed. I have over 200 partners signed up. We are in well over 37 jurisdictions with partners, boots on the ground. We launched in the UK in July, and it has been, Matt, just an insane ride.
Yeah.
But it's been so much fun. We love our team, and what we're really about, Michael and I and the company, are cornerstones, are professional, responsive, trusted, and humble. And for me, you know where humble comes from.
Yeah.
Michael and I believe in servant leadership, and that's something that we are trying to live out every single day. And Matt, I know you do the same in your business, and it's not easy.
Yeah.
We make 18 million mistakes a day and really have to ask for grace when that happens. But it's working. It's working well. We're not terribly surprised it's working, because in this profession, in law, do you know we think about suicide twice more daily than any other profession? That's not
really
okay. Yeah.
Wow.
Something
I did not know that.
Wow. So that's where we are. It's been explosive. We're excited to see where we track in the next, I guess, about 59, 60 days toward the end of the year. But it's been amazing, and we couldn't do it without our team. We have what we call our family, the best Pearford family I could ever work with. Yeah. And that, I mean, across the board, from staff to partners, we hire the right people.
So there's so much to unpack in that, Joel, and your success is it's I don't know what's the right word. It is encouraging, it is challenging, but it's also humbling in that.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I know you, and I know the way that you're leading, and I know that you're not a perfect man. No one is outside of Jesus Christ, but you're leading in a way of that servant leadership, and I love that you called that out. So talk to us again about, you said the 4 cornerstones. Tell us those and how they impact your business, how they impact you leading the organization. So if you can walk us through those 4 again, please.
Yeah. So we're professional, responsive, trusted, and humble. So look, as lawyers, first, we view Michael and I different subsets of clients, right? So Matt, you're a client. We bill time to you,
Sure.
and it's our job to add value. So you hear lawyers a lot talk about um, value add and mixed contingencies and flat fees. And no disrespect to any other lawyer, you'll never hear me criticize the profession, but that portion of it is broken.
Yeah.
You have to add value. I can command a rate that's $3,000 an hour. That's insane. I recognize it's insane. So you have to drive down your rate, truly add value to a client, and flip on its head. So I'm talking about you as an end using client. What if I told you that every partner here, every staff here, when we say Pearson family, they're also a client, and they should be treated the same way. They should have every tool that they need to get their job done and get it done well. There shouldn't be a requirement for FaceTime, not at this level. We're hiring partners,
Yeah.
right?
I love that.
They get in, they get out. We want to give these people their lives back, because we're in a profession that says every 6 minutes is a point one and you need to bill. So when you're spending time with your family or you're spending time with your spouse and you're not billing, and to be honest, it's on the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Something's wrong.
Sure.
So we're flipping that. The biggest, professional, responsive, trusted. These are what you'd expect from lawyers, and these are not buzzwords for us. They're meaningful. And Michael and I, everything we do with intentionality. So we've thought through for decades, and this is something we look at every quarter to try to poke holes into change. I think the big thing that sets us apart is the idea of humbleness. So humbleness to us means that internally, right? When we make a mistake, even on a public, an internal meeting, 200 people could be on the phone.
Sure.
If I misspeak, I stop myself. I apologize. I directly say what I misspoke, what I did wrong. And I promise that through my actions, it will not be repeated. Right. So look, there's a book, right, Matt? I saw your pre-questions, like,
Yeah.
what's the book that everyone should read? Why is this so hard? Right? This book has existed for thousands of years, and it gives you a roadmap, not just how to live life, but how to live business. And we don't have to share the same faith, right? There is a roadmap that is time tested and it works.
Yeah.
So when we talk humbleness, and this scares some people at first when they hear about it, but they come to really love it. There's this idea of conflict resolution that if you and I fight, we should talk about it first. And if it doesn't work, I should go get my brothers and sisters and come back to you in a loving, compassionate, grace-filled, unmerited, forgiveness-filled environment, and talk to you again and be like, listen, man, you really aggrieved me. You're not seeming to get it. It's not about my feelings. My feelings don't matter. This is what you did, and it's not okay.
Sure.
And we talk it out. Well, that happens here. We let anyone vent. But when they're done venting, they're calm. I say, okay, you ready? We're going to call Matt. What do you mean we're going to call Matt? We're going to call Matt. And I'll pick up the phone and be like, hey, Jill's really upset with you because of X, Y, and Z. I'm not taking sides, but I'm here to guide the conversation and quash this right now. There doesn't need to be some passive aggressive pull 2 years later where
Yeah.
Jill hates working with Matt because Matt had a tone deaf email and didn't realize there was some implied tone.
Yeah.
Right. That's humbleness. It's being willing to not have an ego and say you're sorry. And I got to tell you, in this world, that is not easy to do.
Sure. And I love, Joe, I love the way that you're demonstrating that, right? I mean, those of you that are just listening, that are not watching, Joel held up his Bible, which I know he reads, and it's something that he's helping guide him in the discussions with his team. So I love that you're demonstrating that. But Joel, talk to me about the way that you allow those core values to, let's say, hire or fire. How are you allowing those cornerstones to dictate those directions from the top down?
It's a great question. So first, I'm going to be frank. We don't believe in the top-down approach, right?
Okay.
So what Michael and I have done, actually, as of yesterday afternoon, 730 interviews since we've launched.
Wow.
We do them all personally. So
Wow.
we have chairs and co-chairs that are so loved and valued, and we appreciate them so much. But those are unpaid positions. So really, we want to take those interviews and take that burden on. But from a cultural and a fit perspective, we have to set it at the beginning and the end. So we're always the first and always the last interviews. When we're interviewing, what I tell lawyers is that we're looking for really well-adjusted human beings. Hard stop.
Okay.
that also happen to be elite, excellent lawyers. So I know I talk fast and I pause for dramatic effect. Seriously, what we're trying to hire are lifers. Michael and I have an attrition rate at the time that we've worked together of about 1.73%. That's it.
Wow.
Right. I don't want people to leave. Michael doesn't want people to leave. When we're hiring, we want lifers. So if you're a dog adopter, we're a big Chihuahua family. Who knew? I have tiny dogs. You always hear, you adopt from the kill shelter, which is where I would always adopt. These puppies are looking for their forever home. Well, I want our lawyers and our staff, our family looking for their forever home. Well, how do you live that out? Lots of companies say that. I don't know that they mean it. It has to be intentional. Michael and I know everyone's birthdays, anniversaries, significant others, kids, pets. Heaven forbid their diagnoses if they'll share them with us. I was penning out an email to the Pearson family a few minutes before we joined in because one of our partner's child is having surgery.
Wow.
That she called, and we were one of the first calls, and we're able to do a chain like that by email. That's the difference.
Yeah.
And when you're hiring, when you're looking for that and you're focused on that before money, changes everything. Look, I'm not foolish enough to say that money's not important. We run a business. I get that we run a business. There are very specific metrics by which we must test ourselves and look not just to be profitable, but to be successful.
Sure.
That comes, right? Look, even in the first year, we've been cash flow positive since March, other
Wow.
than a capital injection. That's remarkable. It's because we're focused on the right things, and our Pearford family feels it. So Matt, we just had a retreat at the Ritz-Carlton Dove Mountain in Tucson, Arizona,
Nice.
right? And everyone was blown away, including me and Michael. We've been tearing up about it for about 4 weeks now. What I was blown away about was that we had 243 people show up, and all they did was hug. And
Wow.
a lot of these people have never met each other before. We have consistent, purposeful, continuous contacts. We're talking all day long. We're on Teams and Zoom. We really make it a point to reach out. But even seeing that environment and seeing the plus ones come, and like Finn was able to be there and really see this in action,
Sure.
we are looking to dramatically change the practice of law. And that's not hokey. It needs to change.
I love that.
But this isn't just law. Any business, this is a professional services business. Look, lawyers are salespeople. Any business can operate like this. There is a foundational model. I just don't think enough people talk about this. And like, maybe this is that Jerry Maguire moment. The briefcase over my head. Who's
Yeah.
coming with
Yeah.
me?
Who's coming with me?
Um, when Michael and I drafted our attorney handbook, different than an employee handbook. This is just for the lawyers. Most law firms, it's 8 pages, 10 pages, 11 pages. And it's really because an executive committee and a compensation committee sometimes needs to change rules. Ours is 62. I can't change them.
Wow.
Right? It's 62 pages so that everyone knows there's no exception, not even for me and Michael. We're radically transparent. So I want everyone to see what everyone's making every 2 hours in real time. They see it right in an app. You can remove all the bureaucracy. You can show a team, your work family, that they're loved, they're empowered, and they're enough just the way they are. We hired them for a reason.
Yeah.
Right. And I think when you flip that rhetoric and you really focus on the human being during the hiring process, by and large, this is not foolproof, right? But by and large, you get some really excellent people. So look where we are, even on percentage basis. We've interviewed 730, we've hired 200.
Yeah.
There's some excellent lawyers out there. It is more difficult to find really well-adjusted human beings. They can be excellent human beings, but this world's really broken and people are upset and depressed and stressed. That can change.
Sure. Yeah. And I love the way you're seeing your culture that you set. That's the hot button issue that so many people talk about, but you're living that out and you're setting that example of care for your staff and for your team. So I have a logistics question for you. Okay. So your team is massive compared to most other organizations. Obviously you've hit crazy metrics. God has blessed the business. You've worked night and
Thank
day,
goodness.
and your team is working night and day. You provide an excellent service. So I'm not trying to discount any of that. How are you managing the back end logistics of knowing everyone's birthday, everyone's anniversary, everyone's kids' names? Is that something that's just you and you just are
No, my gosh, no. Oh my gosh, Matt, no. So we have an extraordinary team. So first, I'll say a few names. I'm going to leave some people out, so hopefully no one's upset with me. I've been really blessed to have Michael Pearson in my life, and I mean that. I say a lot, you know, Robin Finn, biggest blessings in my life. My biggest professional blessing, or one of them, was meeting Michael. We met about 8 years ago in a different business at a time where I didn't know who he was from Adam. And I was a little suspect initially. Like, we talk about it now and laugh about it. He hasn't just become a best friend. It takes a really large team, right? So Michael Pearson has been an incredible professional blessing. And so Robin Finn, biggest blessings in my life. Professionally, other than Robin, who really, she is my confidant. She's my rock. I run ideas by her. She gives me a gut check. Matt, I have this awful disease where my mom at a young age, and I think she truly believes this still, always told me anything I can put my mind to, you will accomplish. And like, listen, I pray on it, and if it feels biblical, I go do it. And I don't know how to do things small, so we go do it.
yeah.
And I believed it. So shame on her, right? It's the greatest way to be a mom and instill that in your kids. So Robin really does help temper that. Michael and I, because we share similar ethos, I always say like we're opposite sides of a coin.
Okay.
What I'm really great at, Michael's good at. What he's really great at, I'm like, yeah. And it's this perfect combination. And I've never met another human being that works at the speed at which I can work. Right.
Love
And
that.
that's not me having an ego. You know me.
Yeah.
I have a hard time sleeping. I can't turn my head off. I'm really passionate about what I pour myself into. I believe that is God's command. Anything we do, we're meant to do the best to our ability. We don't have to be the best. There's no comparison against someone else. We are meant to blow it out.
Yeah.
Right.
Amen.
And to do it in a loving environment. So when people watch, they're like, oh my gosh, why do you act the way you act? Well, let me tell you about this book. Right. We
Yeah.
are meant to be different. It is meant to be different. It's important. So Michael's been great and shares that ethos. And our jammy jam is mechanization. So we've always had the ability, and I, because of our upbringing as lawyers, and we both cut our teeth at some of the largest law firms in the world and largest institutions in the world in-house, we're able to take a step back and look at a larger picture and crystallize it into a sentence or two.
Okay.
So when we went to start Pearson Ferdinand, we didn't do it in a vacuum. We looked at a larger picture. And that larger picture was, where do we want to be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 out?
Sure.
Right now, most EOS systems, 3, 5, 10,
Yeah.
10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years out. Now that's asinine, because you constantly have to look at this. Atrophy is death, right? I do look at this weekly. Michael and I look at it monthly, quarterly, and we're always talking about it. So look what happens. We don't just draft, we draft everything we can think of. So, for example, we have 77 pre approved engagement forms for our lawyers. Our lawyers don't have to draft an engagement letter, they're done. They're
Wow.
compliant in all 50 US jurisdictions in the States. They take seconds to draft, minutes to turn around and sign, right? Policies, procedures, handbooks, everything is thought out. And every now and again, there's an unintended consequence. So, we had one yesterday. Michael emailed me about it. We're so on par, Matt. It took us less than 3 minutes. We didn't talk about it, to change it, 2 contracts, solidify it, research it, and make it ready.
Wow.
Who else can I work with like that? Right.
Sure.
So we have Landon Spates, who's one of my best friends. He came up with me at the last firm. I trained him up to be, at that time, an assistant GC, or associate general counsel.
Okay.
Landon's our firm managing partner and our co-global general counsel now with me. He's incredible, works at the speed of light. Also a follower, which is kind of cool. And I love Landon to death. He just makes it happen. And then look, we have Matt Bradley, our COO, Meredith Mendes, our CFO, Barry McManaman, Renee Moyer, like, oh my gosh, Meg Radomski, like Kristen Lee. I could just keep on naming names. Matt, most of these people are people that Michael and I have known for 20 years.
Wow.
right? So when we're hiring, we're not always looking for people that are in the law. We're looking for really well-adjusted human beings, right? I think companies forget that. Sometimes companies, they'll send out a search for staff, and they're so targeted on a specific background, right? Or a specific type of skill set. Most of that can be trained,
Sure.
even in law. Most of it can be trained, right? So um, it's really this larger organization, and that's how we keep up. And then look, we're kind of heck bent as lawyers. We live and die by our calendar, so we calendar everything years in advance, right? So when a new partner starts, our intake process and onboarding process is one of the most important things to me. So
Okay.
so laugh at this, right? But behind me in this cabinet, I have thousands of stickers, and from the desk of cards, and I have these on demand in closets here with our QR code, and I handwrite notes for me and Michael all the time. And Michael always blesses these before they go out. We do it as a team, but that's so important to us, that intentionality. Matt, that's how you keep track. I
Yeah.
think that most CEOs, founders, co-founders, whatever, at some point you get big enough, you think you don't have time to do that.
Yeah.
That's more important than anything else I do.
I love that.
People feel that.
Yeah, they do, and I love the distinction of you're hiring for the person, and then you're training some of the skill. Right, some of the best employees that we have are folks that have zero experience coming to us. They fit our culture, and so as a leader, what you and I have done is we've defined as a leader, this is the culture that we're going to set. This is the direction we're going to go. If you feel like you're going to be a good fit in that, and I feel like you're going to be a good fit in that, I can teach you how to do things. I can teach you how to hang Christmas lights and do it well. But
Yeah.
you have to meet within, this is the ethos, this is the culture. This is what we do, this is what we stand for. And if you can be a part of that, fantastic. And we regularly we will interview folks, which sounds like you have as well, 500 or more than I have, that you get to, and you're probably very good, but you're just not going to be very good for us.
So it's interesting, right? I have interviewed in my career. I've been a hiring partner for a decade now. I mean, met hundreds of people, hundreds upon hundreds. Um, Hired, I mean, interviewed. I don't think I'm exaggerating. At least 1,000. Um,
Wow.
it's interesting. So I don't interview in the normal fashion. I interview more conversationally. But look, what if I told you and the listeners that as a leader, to really set a culture, you have to die by that culture, right? If I hire you and you're incredible in the process, I'm going to have you make me a few promises during the interview process. And one of those promises, and I literally, Michael and I do this, the last interview. I'm the last interview. I'm physically drafting the offer package myself. I insist on it. All right. Hey, Matt, you're coming over. You have to make me a promise. I'm going to send you this offer package, and the promise you're going to make me, once you're here, if you see something, experience something that you don't love, take a step back. Remember that Staples red easy button?
Yeah. Yeah.
Pick up the phone and call me or Michael. Not our delegates. Will be over 1,000 lawyers someday. Us. And like, what do you mean? Well, if I don't know about it and Michael doesn't know about it, we don't know how to fix it. We'll still ask for grace. Michael and I work 20 hours a day. It's exhausting, and it's really difficult to get constructive criticism, even as a servant leader, because we're bleeding. And then to hear something back like, have you considered? I'm like, oh my gosh. But yeah, I mean, you want to hear that so you can fix it. So you have to do that. But as a leader, it means that I have to be authentic from start to finish.
Yeah.
Right. And this is that funny thing where people, like, they'll start, 2, 3, 4, 5 months in. I called all the new folks over the last month yesterday. And two of them said, I just can't believe this. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Why would there be another shoe? This is us. I said, every lawyer, every individual suffers from a form of severe post-traumatic stress disorder from a prior organization, job,
Sure.
boss, especially in law. This is a very work hazing environment to learn as you're coming up, particularly in big law. And it's really hard,
Yeah.
right? Like, I cut my teeth like that. Frankly, it was a very difficult way to train, but it made me a great lawyer. So different issue on the training, but it takes some time to calm down. So as an owner, when you slip up as a partner or an employee or staff, I have to call you and I'm going to give you grace once. I call this the no meanie face jerk rule. Hey, Matt, do you owe someone an apology? Be like, what are you talking about? Like, nothing happens here without Michael and I knowing about it. We make a point of talking to everyone. It's important. You have to have your fingers on the pulse of an organization. It'd be 10,000 people. You still have to be able to do that,
Sure.
right? Somehow. And you'd be like, oh, I don't know. Like, stop. Please don't make me say it. Like, you're right. I owe Jill an apology. We have a Jill. She's a listen to this and be like, why did you pick on me? Well, listen. And
We
I'll be
love you,
like,
Jill.
Matt, you get one. Maybe you had a bad diagnosis. You had a crap day. It happens. But if this happens again, I don't care how much money you're making for the company, you won't be here anymore.
Yeah.
And you have to live that out. And to terminate someone, well, let's say you're making the company $20 million a year. This happens in law. Do you terminate them or do you let them stay? Here, they're gone. That culture, if it's the wrong culture, you will take down the organization. But you have to live that out. Dude, that's really hard.
Yeah, it is. And it is hard to let someone go, especially when you feel like they're producing, they're bringing in revenue, which every business owner likes to see that top line revenue go up. But
Yeah.
the drain on your culture is just not worth it. And you will find that, at least in my opinion, that the Lord continues to open doors as we're faithful to sometimes we have to close a door. We have to put someone into a new season, that this is just not the right season for them within our organization. It is closed. Well, the Lord is faithful, that there's someone else or there's others that can fill those roles that are so much better. That it's a better fit for them and it's a better fit for your organization.
So you know my story. I wasn't always close to God. He was close to me. I just didn't realize, right? So I have fired as an attorney and as a business leader and now a business owner uh, quite a few people in my career. It's always something that even before I was close with God, you give careful consideration. Like, this isn't a funny joke to me,
Sure.
even in the hiring process. This is one of the reasons Michael Pearson and I take it so critically. I do not want to hire someone that will not be a lifer, because at some point they're going to leave. Well, if they leave, that's okay. Really
Yeah.
is, right? If I have to fire them, it's awful, right? And there is a emotional toll, even on the business owner, the person having to do the termination. And look, I make it a point to be on those calls. It's important. Even
Sure.
when my name wasn't on the door, that's important. I've never done a termination where a year to 2 years later, I don't get a thank you card.
Wow.
Right. So I think that if you do it with empathy and grace, and Matt, it's exactly what you said. It might be raw in the moment, but it tends to be the best thing, not just for the organization, but for the employee or partner or whomever that staff position is, because they must be just as miserable.
Yeah.
And usually they are. And I always try to make it a point, if we can help them find a new job, if we can give them a excuse me, a stronger letter of recommendation. It's rare, exceedingly rare, to have to terminate someone globally for embezzlement or something, like something so wrong
Sure.
that you couldn't give even a benign recommendation.
Yeah. And I love the way that you give them grace, right? I look at businesses, right, and it's the same way with our team. You anticipate people to make mistakes. They're going to make mistakes. No one's perfect. We've said that many times on this show. We've said it in our time together this morning, outside of the person of Jesus Christ. But what makes the integrity of someone, in my opinion, is how they address that mistake. And so I love, Joel, the way you're setting up your organization. Like you mentioned earlier, you're on the call, you misspeak, you get called on something, you stop, you address it, you apologize, you seek to move forward and not doing that again. And so I love that you're doing that for your team to show them, like, hey, we're going to make mistakes around here, but we've got to learn from them and move forward from them and not continue to make the same mistake over and over and over again.
I'm going to tell you, you read books about this, you hear business leaders talk about it. I just don't think it's emphasized enough. So many business owners, employees, independent contractors, K1s, it doesn't matter. They're so afraid of the idea of a mistake. I don't mean a mistake that's going to cost money and take down a company or create a lawsuit, right? I mean, Matt, an actual mistake, like they just mess something up.
Sure.
Or an employee makes a mistake. Listen, we have an employee that I'm training up right now. And from a distance, I watched that employee make a mistake yesterday. And we had a standing call. And I was like, well, what do you think? Walk me through it. And we discussed it. And I explained, I knew you were doing it incorrectly. But what you were doing was only going to take 5 or 10 minutes. And it wasn't enough of a burn of your time for me to call because I wanted you to work through it to see that it wouldn't work. Because just because we have a way of doing something, Matt, there's 1,000 ways to get to bingo. It doesn't mean my way's right.
Yeah. I love that.
Right? Mistakes are not bad. We learn from them, but they can't be repeated. Right. And even as a leader, I think you have to give people grace when they make mistakes. But isn't this part of the expectation talk? So listen, I destroyed my marriage for years. My mistress was work. I'm a serial monogamist, but gosh, can I work? You know that.
Yeah.
And I went work, 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 Robin Finn, work, dot, 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 maybe God, for years.
Sure.
All right. when we went through it all and we went through marriage counseling, I went for years. I mean, thank God everything's level set. We're besties across the board, but I learned a lot about myself. Look, man, I've taken that into business. So this is that expectations thing. If we're going to work together, Matt, like, listen, without breaching attorney-client privilege, you volunteer that we're your attorneys. We are. I did the same thing with you.
Yeah.
I do this with everyone. Like, hey, if we're going to represent you, here's what we need. Here's the documents. Here's the date by which we need them. If we don't have them by this date, we're not the lawyers for you. Because I don't want to chase you at this level of my career. Isn't it the same thing when you have an employee? Like, listen, you have this incredible franchise, Matt, where I mean, not just Mosquito Joe's, but you're doing Christmas lights. It's incredible. You're exploding. When you're instructing someone the first time on how to do Christmas lights, the more specific you are, the less specific you have to be next time.
Yeah.
And if you're hyper specific, and in this environment, in professional service environment, if I confirm it in writing simultaneous, and I mean simultaneous, hey, Matt, here's my expectations of you. What are your expectations of me? I write to confirm our conversation that we're never going to get in a disagreement. And if you drop the ball, that grace-filled conversation is really easy. Hey, Matt, was I not clear? I thought we were really clear. Like, you asked me to do X, Y, Z. I asked you to do A, B, C. You missed B. Please don't do it again. And here's that email if you need to see it. And you're like, oh my gosh, I messed up.
Yeah.
We're good. Why does it have to be passive aggressive? I think that's the downfall of culture.
I totally agree. And I have, so I love the core values, right? We have core values, but one of the things that we've done, which you have as well, is we've defined what that means. Because what integrity means to you, it may mean something different to me slightly. And what you're doing in the onboarding process, and then you're also continuing that process, is you're providing a lot of clarity for your team, for everyone that works for you, and for your clients. And we've said on this show before, like, that is what a gift. What a gift you can give to somebody to clarify the relationship around how we're going to work together. So that way I know very clearly, here are the guardrails. I'm going to stay within those, and I have a very clear direction that we can move. I know, don't go against this guardrail, don't go against that guardrail, but I can stay within the lane that I need to be in this relationship, and we're going to work well together.
I just think it's so important. Like, the worst feeling in the world as an employee, personal experience, right? Is that feeling that you don't know what you're doing or you can't figure it out. Maybe that's just me and it's unique in my box, but I picked the profession I chose because I get bored easily.
Yeah.
And every day I have something, I don't want to say like new, quote unquote, but new on my desk that I haven't experienced or seen before. And I have to go solve. And I love to solve the problem, love to solve the puzzle, to risk mitigate, and to get the client from A to Z. And if that's in scaling, which is the bulk of my business these days, oh my gosh, like, Matt, if I can be like, hey, I listened to your whole story. I read all your stuff. Why don't you try A, B, and C right now? And to watch you do it and have the company explode, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
It's so much fun. But it's that culture. So we do the same thing. So Michael and I printed these cards for every single one of our Pearson family, and everyone gets these in the mail. We pass them out at the retreat, but everyone new gets these. And I'm just going to read it to you because I think it proves the point. It's not enough to know the why. It has to be lived out every single day from the left to the right. and
Yeah.
people need to see it. And listen, we're a fully remote organization. We're a distributed law firm. That means purposeful, consistent, and continuous contacts. We are on Teams and the phone and email with our teams every day. They have to feel that love and never feel less than. Well, to not feel less than, it's more than understanding the why. It's watching the why be lived out with the named partners,
Yeah.
with the management, with like whatever rung across that ladder from left to right.
Sure.
We believe, listen, man, my name's on the door with Michael. You heard me say it twice now. There's no exceptions for us. So we're equals. If you start this law firm as staff or partner tomorrow, you are my equal and you will be treated as such. I recognize Michael and I still have to hire and fire and set strategy, but everyone's treated as an equal. So this card lives it out. I'll just read a few of them and it's branded and we sign it. But this way, people can keep it in a purse or a wallet or on
Sure.
them.
I love that.
And this came from Armand Shadadi, one of my partners, had a prior law firm that did something similar. And he showed it to me after we hired him. And it was so jarring to me. He'd kept it for 20 years.
Wow.
Right. So this just says adhere to the highest ethical standards. Be honest and truthful in your practice of law. Sounds like a bad cliche when you watch TV, right? Be respectful. You can still be a zealous advocate. Win by good lawyering, not trickery. Avoid criticizing other lawyers and law firms. Do your best every day in every project. Support one another. Treat others as you wanted to be treated. I don't know in business when these basic foundational premises went away.
Yeah.
I listen. And this is not a criticism of any law firm. I've worked in a bunch of firms. I've been inside adversaries' offices. You watch this happen. I litigate for a living. So, Matt, it's always this.
Sure.
And people get so into it and they're so about the W, the win. Like I win a lot. I like winning too. But I just think there's a better way to do it. You can still be really respectful and scorched earth. Like everything can be emotion. You can fight about everything, but we can still go out and have coffee after.
Sure.
That should not be jarring to people.
Yeah. And I love it, man. I appreciate the way that you're leading, and I loved some of the things that you said about the way you're mentoring your team. Right? You gave that team member earlier this week an opportunity to fail. You knew they were going to fail. You knew it was going to be a small fail, but you were able to teach them through that. So flip that on its head. Who has mentored Joel? What has that process been like for you? You've got this amazing success story now, but it hasn't always been that way. So where are you finding mentorship, and how is that growing you as a leader and as an entrepreneur?
To answer it in a weird fashion, I didn't understand until the last 4 years or so of my life to surround yourself not necessarily with like-minded individuals, but like-minded individuals, at least for me from a faith perspective, that helps me kind of guide, and entrepreneurs that have been at this level or preferably higher that can be like, hey kid, what are you worried about? Like
Yeah.
I've seen situations 100 times worse. Here's how you solve it. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I really just started doing that in the last 4 years with like Iron Forums and
Okay.
listen, even with Michael Pearson, like confiding in Michael and Michael confiding in me and working a business together. I always charted my own path, right? So when I was a kid, for better or for worse, I led myself to believe that I was less than.
Okay.
And if you were to ask my therapist, Bob, our dear brother from Iron Forums,
Yeah.
and frankly, the best therapist I've worked with in my life, Bob would probably tell you, I'm actually certain he would tell you that the reason I tick is because I want to prove to the world that says no, that I can do it, but I have to prove such a point that look at the size that it's done. It's
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you, I don't do this for credit. I have a really difficult time taking thanks or opening a present. It's really awkward for me. I'm doing this for something much bigger, right? I truly believe, and I've been praying on this for years, believe that this is my calling,
Love that.
right? We are changing people's lives, me and Michael, and they don't have to share the same faith as me. It doesn't need to be a faith-driven exercise. but I'm not shy about where it comes from for me. And this is just the core of being a good human being, I think. Like
Yeah.
when I say the world is broken or the world's on fire, I may have said that a couple times today. It is. I'm watching as a business leader, kids make really bad decisions. I'm watching, um, I'm watching other businesses and vendors, even in negotiation, make decisions that can be jarring or listen. I appreciate that we're past the point where it's just a handshake,
Yeah.
right? Thank goodness we need lawyers. Yay. Matt, if I say I'm going to do something, you don't need me to sign something. I
Yeah.
will always. I'm just going to do it. And what I'd love to see, what Michael would love to see, I think I can talk for him in that regard, is a world that goes back to where we say what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Darn it, you do it. And you do it to the best of your ability. And that's why I love working with that man,
I love it. I love it.
right? It's why I love working with Landon, Matt, Meredith, Amy, like Barry, Lily. I list hundreds of names. They just get it.
Yeah. And again, it's this conversation. I didn't realize it was going to be so much about culture, but just the more that I think about you, I think about that, and I love that you've created that culture for your team. That it starts with you as one of the founders, you and Michael. That you set that as the leaders. But what that's doing is that's now drawing folks to you, other team members, as well as clients that appreciate that, which doesn't make it easier, but it helps navigate some of those more difficult conversations. But then you're setting that expectation on the front end with your team and your clients that our word matters. And when we give you
Yeah.
our word, it matters.
Listen, it has to, Matt. I think that lawyers forget we're in a service industry. It's no different than your industry, right?
Yeah.
Like I recognize I professional before services for us. It is the same thing. So I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on law school. I got a degree. I cut my teeth trying cases. You learn. You're a good lawyer. Fine. At the end of the day, I'm selling a service. And when we talk, it's Matt, what's your problem? I either have a skill set or the firm and the partners here have a skill set to solve it or not. If
Yeah.
not, I'm going to tell you not, and I'll refer you out. Right?
Yeah.
You have to be taken care of. If I can, and I tell you a scope of how much it's going to cost, I recognize lawyers aren't cheap.
Sure.
If I tell you that something's going to be there on a date certain, listen, man, on time is late and late is on time.
Yeah.
And Michael and I talk about this all the time because I know he shares the same mantra. I take this back to my why in my house. In this house, and I teach Finn the same thing at 14 and Jameson at 18. I don't care if they get A's. I don't
Yeah.
care if they're the best. I don't know what that means. That was that. I think my dad very much tried to teach me and train me the same way I'm training Finn, but I didn't understand it, and I viewed it more as a metric of success. My success is based on how much money do I make? What's my title? How much self-conceived power do I have? It's wrong. No
Sure.
disrespect to my father. It's just wrong. I want the kids, and I do this in my life, and this is what we want from employees and partners, but my kids, Jameson and Finn, we want them to do the best they can do in what they do. Not metric, not measurable against someone else, their actual best. If Finn comes home and he gets an 80 on something, which would be mind boggling because Finn and Jameson are genius machines. I don't know where they get it from. My only question is, dude, did you try your hardest? Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
We're good. I had this conversation with Finn a month ago or so, and I said, sweetheart, I know you see dad drive so hard at everything he does, and mom's the same way. You're 14. You don't need to work 10 to 15 hours a week. You don't need to do the play and the swim team and the tennis team and honors course and get hundreds and everything. Where is the pressure coming from? Honey, it's not me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and he was like, well, I just love everything I do. And I'm like, well, are you good at school? He's like, well, the problem is, dad, I know I can get hundreds or I know I can get a 90. So I have to do it. Listen, if everyone worked like that, if everyone put their all in their spousal relationships and Matt, in our friendships and our mentorship like this, come on, man. And to loop it back, because I had squirrel brain, now I'm starting to learn that I need people like you in my life.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that because I'm on your podcast, but seriously, like when you and I have a hard time, I know that if I'm going through the crap, whether that's in my relationship with my spouse or my son or at work, I can call you
Yeah.
and you're like minded enough that you'll let me vent and then maybe be like, hey, Joel, you just said some really unkind things about your wife. I don't think you meant it. Whose eyes are you seeing her through right now? Rather than be like, yeah, you should get a divorce. Like, that's what I mean when I say like minded,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And having that from a personal perspective into an owner perspective to an entrepreneur perspective, I don't know there's any greater value. So listen, Mark Carson from Iron Forum,
Yeah.
who's cashed out of his business and is presumptively retired, but to our Iron Forum brothers, retirement is a 4-letter word because
Yeah.
it's not in the Bible,
Yeah.
that word. I've looked multiple times. I couldn't
Amen.
find it. So Mark really helps counsel me on some bigger issues. And if I'm having, I guess, paralysis by analysis, because it happens sometimes, right?
Sure.
You make a decision and it has 16 unintended consequences you haven't thought through
Yeah.
that can be devastating to someone. That really is important. And you don't have to join an organization like Iron Forms to get it. It helps, but it's really lovely to have that. And like Matt, my biggest confidant, my counselor since the day I met her has been my wife. We met
Yeah.
on April 11th of 2023, right? Well, we didn't meet. We kissed on April 11th, 2023. That was it. Right? I knew that woman, Matt, she's been my everything. I can't explain that enough to other owners. You need a significant other that understands you better than yourself. She knows my weird ticks. She knows what I like and don't like. She knows how to de-stress. She knows when I'm venting versus when I'm really on the point. Like, listen, what I do is severe. Sometimes you have to file lawsuits, right? Sometimes our speech can get aggressive. For her to be able to temper and tone me down, huge. I wouldn't be me, let
Yeah.
alone have this level of success or any success without that woman.
Yeah. I love that. And I love just kind of tying a bow on all of that is this idea of surrounding yourself with great people. Proverbs 13:20 said it here many times, and I continue to say it. He who walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools suffers harm. And Joel, you're such a great example of that. You're surrounding yourself with wise people, like Michael, somebody that compliments you, that you don't fight with, that you can lead with well. Your spouse, folks in Iron Forums, folks outside of Iron Forums, you're surrounding yourself with wise people that are helping you grow as a leader, knowing that you're not just God's gift to humanity. I think as entrepreneurs, we get into this idea that I have to know it all. I have to do it all. I am the greatest thing since sliced bread. And it's this idea of no, there is so much I can learn. And part of that learning process is going to be through my connections with other people that, like you said, are further down the road than me. And they look at the
So
issues that I have and they're like, oh yeah, that's pretty easy. I remember going through that. Here's how I did it.
I just gotta say, so again, this is no criticism. I'm not calling anyone out. I never would. I've been in a lot of C-suites in my career. I was blessed at a very young age to be a business leader. Listen, the biggest problem I've seen from me being a baby lawyer until today, and this is me also as a lawyer walking inside C-suites and fixing companies, doing company turnarounds, litigations, business divorces. 98% of the problems that I've seen are because the owners have an ego or hubris.
Yeah.
You've heard me say it a couple times, and I almost wish Michael were on right now because I know he would echo it. This is not about us. It's not about our feelings. Our feelings don't matter, Matt. This is bigger than us. And when we launched, we didn't want our name on the door. I think it's icky. I hate it. But we didn't want to launch with a trade name because we're a law firm. We wanted to be known as a law firm. And there's some trade name lawyers, law firms out there. They're great. We didn't love it for us for regulatory issues and
Sure.
some of the jurisdictions we're in. So when we went and did this, it's really serious. Like, listen, I've heard owners be like, no, this is my legacy. This is not my legacy, right? It's Pearson Ferdinand. It's meant to be bigger. What I want to see lived out in action is actual servant leadership because I want to show people. This is why I brought Finn to the retreat. Michael wants to show people there is a different way to run business. What if What if I'll be remotely political? Doesn't matter the side of the aisle. We have an election in 2 days. What if all candidates and everyone in the government stopped any perceived nonsense and simply believed in servant leadership? And it wasn't about any of us
Yeah.
individually working there. It wasn't about PACs or super PACs or power or perceived power. It was about how do we go fix things? Because you look around and things need to be fixed.
Yeah.
Well, if you run a business like that and you're responsive and your C suite is small enough that you don't suffer paralysis by analysis and you can make nimble decisions and you really live this out, you're going to make a gazillion mistakes, but it's going to work.
Yeah. I love it. And it's so true. And I love, we don't get political in here, and I appreciate the way that you communicated that. But you see that. And instead of selfishly, what can this role do for me? It is, what can I do to help here? So, Joel, man, I've taken up too much of your time. Thank you so much, brother, for sharing. One question I want to end on. This is a question I love to ask, and your new business is in its infancy. It is absolutely exploded. I continue to look forward to how God continues to bless it for 50 years and beyond. But what advice would you give to younger Joel, say 10 years ago? What's a piece of advice you wish you would have had? Maybe something you've already shared there in a conversation you want to clarify or add to, or something that you hadn't shared yet.
That question was not on the list you gave me. All right. I'll say something loaded, and I hope this doesn't get me canceled, because I said this to Robin the other day, and I was like, Robin, I don't know I can say this out loud, because I never said it out loud to anyone else. Maybe to Michael. I've always been this. I haven't always been this version of myself, but the speed with which I work, the passion, the desire, the drive. And when I was younger, it was truly fueled on this idea of a metric driven success. How much money do you make? What type of house do you live in? What type of quote unquote perceived power do you have? I think all of that's wrong. I've flipped in the last several years, and I understand where it comes from. And when I was a boy, I was very close to God, 10, 11 years old. And I really fell away during high school and college, and I've come back. The advice I would have given myself, honestly, would be to live differently and not to stray. I don't have regrets. Everything that I did got me here.
Sure.
Right. So I don't know that this was the cleanest path to get me here, but it got me where I believe truly that I was meant to be. However, I wish I would have had someone in my life, and my mom tried, I just couldn't hear it from her, that had the mentor they're talking about. Like, Finn's really involved in youth group, right? Like, that's super important to me, because he has other men that are a little older than him. It's teaching Finn in youth group with all different leaders, my age, older than me, younger than me, the true biblical truth for how to live out a life in a world that maybe not everyone lives it out. And the point in that for me is, Finn, we all sin. So you don't judge people. You're meant to be different. And different means we treat everyone with a love. So, I mean, for years, I don't even know why I was doing it. I call everyone brother. Everyone, brother or dude. Matt, you've heard me say it.
Yeah.
That's really meaningful to me. Brother, sister, like, brothers or sister, like, you get that. Like, so I expect Finn, I expect Jameson to treat everyone like that. I wish that had been a different version of me as a kid. And I wish that would have been poured in, because I've caused myself drama and grief early on in my career in interacting with others. I would also say, read psychology books early on and understand what a narcissist is and what a malignant narcissist is, and how to have certain traits, but never to fall into that. And why you should never be the smartest on a telephone or a call or an organization, because if you are, my gosh, are you failing? Yeah. And that's not a failure from which you recover.
Yeah, I love that so much. Do you remember any of those offhand that you would recommend? Any of the psychology books?
There's nothing. You're to laugh at some of the suggestions. There's nothing specific offhand, but if you were to Google, I love the books that break down the personalities, because there's not very many personality traits. Yeah. When you really start breaking it down, like, listen, with what we do as business leaders, we run into narcissists a lot. That's not always a bad thing, right?
Sure.
There's malignant narcissists, there's non-malignant. So when you start looking at it, and Robin is so well read on this, part of my sounding board, right? You approach these people in a very different fashion. If I approach a malignant narcissist as directly as I would approach you, Matt, they're going to explode. Yeah. And then what am I going to do? Do I have a short fuse, or do I de-escalate the situation? I wish earlier on I would have learned how to de-escalate the way I can now.
Love that. I love that. Well, brother,
not everything has to be hot.
That's a great way to end. I appreciate your time, Joel, very much. I love you, brother. Appreciate the way you're leading.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate the way you're serving my family, my organization, my franchisees, my team, but just the way you're serving in the kingdom, and the way that you're serving countless, which who knows when this episode comes out, how many employees are going to be up to. I love that you are continuing to grow. What an inspiring story. I appreciate, brother, the way that you're leading. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of Market Mavericks. We'll see you soon. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Market Mavericks. We hope you're walking away inspired and ready to take your own adventure to the next level. Don't forget to follow the show to keep up with our latest episodes. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe, share it with others who could benefit. And hey, if you know a Market Maverick who has a story that needs to be heard, please drop their name in the comments. We would love to bring their insights to the show. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries and leading with purpose.